Good evening, welcome to the overnight edition of From Day One. And with that, let's get to Art Bell and the rest of the SETI conversation. Sorry, let me get it requeued. And the rest of the SETI conversation.
I've seen
keep hitting the wrong key.
Photos on Mars. Well, there was one, today about, some little woman standing there on Mars. I think that these are all the same phenomena. I really do think they're pareidolia. But if you were to see something that looked like, a carburetor lying on the surface of Mars, and you say, well, that's a pretty unusual carburetor. But would you believe that? If somebody claimed, I found a carburetor sitting on Mars, you'd say, you're just seeing things in the rocks. It's like looking in the clouds and you're seeing things that look familiar to you. Okay?
And Seth, I agree with you about the woman's image. What that looks like to me is very thin layers of dry ice that's been sublimated so thin it looks just like that kind of see-through.
Caller, with the number of pixels that he mentioned, the resolution, how can you possibly be coming up with this analysis?
Well, I have actually many more pixels than that. These are very high-resolution pictures taken with a mass cam, and the data is in there. I've been able to tease it out and look at it at very, very many different layers of.
But when you go too deep with not enough pixels, you're the one who gets teased.
Yeah, but there is enough pixels, and we've been able to look at the ball joints themselves and how they're configured.
All right.
And this is not imaginary. This thing is braced itself.
All right. Send it to me. Send it to me. Okay?
I will promise to send it to you, and I'll send it to Seth as well.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. I do think that's what happens when you go too deep with not enough pixels. You begin to see, frankly, what you want to see, or your imagination can run. It's like looking at clouds, kind of. Do you agree with that, Seth?
No, absolutely. That's the problem. I mean, our brains are really good at recognizing things that we already know about in complicated visual images, like in a forest and so on. I mean, you can see why we're so good at that, because 100,000 years ago, it was really important that you recognize things like predators, for example, in a complicated landscape. So, and a lot of times you would think, oh man, that's a lion, I better get out of here, and it's not a lion, but it's better to err on the side of caution from the standpoint of your own survival and your own genetic inheritance than not to. So we're really good at that. We're really good at seeing things with very little information.
We are. Denton, Texas, your turn. It's midnight for you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
I missed the first part of the show, but I had a question for Seth. Are you publicly funded?
Well, the SETI Institute, which is where I work here, is, it's a nonprofit research organization, and most of the scientists down the hall here from where I'm talking to you are what are called astrobiologists. So they're studying things like the history of water on Mars, the possibility of microbial life on some of the moons of Jupiter, Saturn, that kind of thing. And that is funded mostly by, they get grants. So that money does come from the government, mostly NASA. The SETI project, which is, the listening experiments to try and find intelligent life elsewhere, that's funded by donations. That's all. There's no government money there.
Okay, I was curious if you had to give a presentation to a board or something, and then, what do you present on your progress to get funding?
Well, you do have to present.
Actually, that's a very good question.
Yeah, but the board doesn't really give you too much money. I mean, it would be nice to have a board that consists of people who could, in fact, help out in a very, significant way in the funding of the organization.
Yes. But Seth, if you had to go in front of them and say, look, you haven't found a darn thing yet. You've been looking since, what was it, 70?
Well, the first modern SETI experiment, Frank Drake's, was 1960.
Okay. Since 1960, what kind of argument do you make in front of that board?
Well, the board is well aware of that, of course. They know the history of SETI, but they also know this thing that we actually discussed very briefly at the beginning of the show, and that is that whatever experiment you're doing this year is faster than every previous experiment. Because of the improvement in mostly compute power, what you can do every year gets faster. In fact, every 2 years, you can more or less double the speed of your search.
Caller, would that be enough of an argument to get you to approve the money?
Honest, no.
All right, that's what I thought. All right. Oh, see? That's what you're up against, Seth. This is Midnight in the Desert. I'm Art Bell. And boy, are we rocking tonight. Stay right where you are. Midnight in the Desert. To call the show, if you're east of midnight, call 1-952. Call Art. If you're west of midnight, call 1-952-225-5278. Love that. Pay attention. And by the way, Skype is MITD51. MITD51. And if you've got good audio, boy, you'll just sound great on Skype. All right. Once again, the senior astronomer, and we're kidding around with him a lot, this is a very serious scientist, actually, senior astronomer and director of the Center for SETI Research, Seth Shostak. Seth, that last caller at the end said, frankly, no, wouldn't fund you.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I mean, he might not have funded Captain Cook either. I mean, it's his exploration.
True.
And you don't know when you're going to discover something. And the fact that you've sailed around for a couple of months and haven't found anything, I mean, that might mean there's nothing to find. Might mean that you shouldn't give up too early.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's return to those that are there. Boy. Dave?
Yeah.
Hi, Dave. I heard you say, oh, boy.
Yeah, well, you were just talking about something very dear to my heart, and that's prospecting. And we have a saying, you're going to lose. You're not going to win anything. You're not going to find anything if you just don't go out. And if you don't go out, you can't complain. Never find anything.
Oh.
So for Art, remember your antenna story where you were saying you're developing a static voltage?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, if you could commutate that with one of those Tesla commutators, those Tesla static motors, then you could get a voltage on a transformer, maybe use it to charge a phone.
I know, or maybe for more than that. Listen, there is a company, I found out, sir, there is a company actually working with antennas like mine that are producing voltage like mine, and they're working on putting it to practical use. So
Tesla wasn't going crazy. He actually knew that this could be done, and just a little bit of antenna wire could prove it, but we're talking something a little longer than that to be useful for the United States. And for Seth, man, I don't want to just, you're a man of great inspiration for me, but in order to communicate with these folks so far away, we should be using light, and we should be modulating the light by phase. Maybe even with this timestamp, periods of light on and off, representing the distance between, say, the core of our galaxy and our Earth. What do you think?
Well, light is perfectly okay with me. In fact, we do some light. We have a whole project. We're developing some new instruments for looking for light flashes in the sky. Light works. I mean, it's just, it's another form of radio, if you will, or maybe radio is another form of light, whichever way you want to look at it. And it's true.
I believe that it's the other way.
I suppose you're saying this because you can get more bits per second on a light beam than you can get on a radio beam. And if you want to send a lot of information, better to use a fiber optic than a radio wave. But I also got to say that there's dust hanging between the stars. So if you're trying to send stuff, great distances, the kind of light that you can see with your eye is not really the best way to do it.
True, there'll be occlusion. Now, one more thing. This idea of LDE, reflection of radio waves, what if enough electromagnetic bodies were floating in our greater ionosphere that creates occasionally a reflective cone? And I'm not talking about,
maybe, but again, the distances involved.
Yeah.
Just, they don't work with the math. Even if you're talking about it bouncing all the way around the Earth.
Of the Van Allen belt?
Oh.
I'm just saying.
Oh, well, you're getting further out now.
Well, I see, that's far enough where you can get that kind of reflection, and it's got an electromagnetic wave to it, and it could build up enough to reflect ionospherically.
Okay. All right.
I'm just saying. Anyway, brother, it is so good talking to you. Welcome back. This is a bellwether day indeed.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Art, if I can say, somebody sent me a link to a BBC article on those 47-year-old television signals, of the
Yes.
Doctor Who signals coming back to Earth
Oh, yes.
that were supposedly picked up, according to the article, using the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. And the BBC was happy about this because indeed the tapes were gone and this sort of thing, and they could get Doctor Who back into their archive. However, it's maybe worth noting that this article was published on the 1st of April.
Okay. 1st of April. Well, I bet that's a bad day for you all around, isn't it? Let's go back for a second to protocols. You said you wrote the protocols. Okay.
Well, I didn't write them, but I was in chair of the committee that revised the protocols. Yeah, we never got to the protocols, did we?
Well, no, and I want to get to them. In other words, if you received a signal, give me the official version of what would happen.
Well, official. First, I gotta say, make a disclaimer. There is no official version. There are these protocols. Indeed, they're a document that fits on, I don't know, three sheets of paper or something like that. But they are a gentleman's agreement in the sense that there's no force of law. It isn't that the UN has stamped these babies and said everybody's got to pay attention to this. In fact, there's some people doing SETI who never even signed these things because they said, come on, I don't have to sign a piece of paper to be honest about what I'm doing.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Marty, I know you're there. Just be quiet and listen. We'll get you on the air in a bit, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, good. Proceed. Well, okay, maybe we better not because Marty can't be quiet. Marty, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Bristol in the UK.
Okay. Since we took it, you've got a little background noise, so I can't have you be quiet, so just go ahead and ask your question. And we'll go back to protocols.
Yeah. Sorry about the noise. It was basically referring to the caller a couple of calls ago about the NASA footage that was suddenly cut rather abruptly.
Yes.
My mind was cast back 20 or so years ago about a similar situation of NASA footage which shows objects entering and leaving the Earth, and then a blast seemingly looked like maybe a projectile of some sort was fired, and these objects changed direction, which couldn't be explained. So it seems to me that they are under intelligent control.
Okay, I've got it, and let's address that, Seth. He's right. I have seen objects like your oil that you were talking about, like the oil, and they've changed direction. Now, how do you account for that one?
They've changed direction.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're talking about these little things that were leaving the atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
And many times you see film footage of those things that don't go straight like the ones we saw, but they suddenly take a right-hand jog. How about that?
Oh, okay. You're talking about these ISS photos and that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was still on the protocols.
We'll get back to the protocols. I'm sorry. It was, England, so I answered.
Okay. I don't know that they changed direction. I haven't seen that, so I can't speak to that. I really can't.
Oh.
The videos I saw, they were just slowly drifting, which is what you expect, because they don't, unless you give them a big push somehow, they're just going to slowly lift off. They're, in free fall, just like everything else in orbit there.
Okay, so if I were to show you a similar thing with objects that actually change direction in the trajectory, would that make you go,
I would definitely go home.
Okay, yeah. Good. All right. Look forward to it. I'll get it to you. All right, so back to protocols. Signal comes, then what?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I said. But you check it out, and you check it out as thoroughly as you can on your own instruments.
Sure.
Because, you don't want to bug somebody else if it's just some sort of equipment failure, a software bug, who knows what. Or, more likely than any of that, is it just some satellite that's gone overhead that has a transmitter, of course, and it's just fooling you. But at some point, it might take a couple of days. But after you've done everything you can and you're still convinced this is the big one, or could be the big one, Then you call up somebody at another observatory. More likely than not, they're probably in another country, and you just say, look, we don't want to force you to interrupt what you're doing,
Right.
but here's some coordinates on the sky and a frequency range. See if you can find any signal in there. And if they find it too, then at that point you probably would just have a press conference. But the facts are that by then it's already in the papers. It's already out there. That's our experience, because there's no policy of secrecy. So every time you find a signal, people are putting it on their blog or they're sending emails to their friends.
I would like to believe that what you're telling me is the absolute truth of the way it would come down. But if it was obviously a really big signal, it was intelligent life, yeah, I guess it might leak out, but also I'm thinking that you would have to notify. I mean, there would be an official chain. I'm sure there is. In your protocols, there's got to be more than a press conference. You don't go straight to the press, do you really?
Well, we don't go to the press, actually. The press comes to us. That's what happens.
Well,
when we've had these false alarms, it isn't that we start calling the papers, because we still hadn't checked it out. We found this really interesting signal, and we thought, this has all the hallmarks. Maybe this is it. I wasn't going home and going to sleep. I was just staying at the institute looking at the computer screen.
Sure.
Okay. And everybody else was too. I was pretty sleepy. At 9 in the morning, I'm half asleep at my desk. We couldn't follow the signal at that point because, the Earth rotates and the star just dropped below the horizon. So we had to wait something like 12 hours before we could see it again. But, when I'm half asleep on the desk, the phone rings and it's the New York Times. So that's what actually happens. It's, the media are calling you. And the difficulty here is not due to secrecy. It's the fact that they're going to be interested in stories even when you haven't verified the signal. So you can expect that they're going to be false alarms.
So I'm Frank Rothschild calling you from the New York Times. Now, we understand you've received a signal. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I don't lie to the New York Times. So it wasn't Frank Rothschild, whoever Frank is.
I have no idea. I just picked a name.
Okay, well, it was Bill Broad, actually. He still writes for the New York Times. And he, I've actually met the guy. And he said, so what about that signal you're following? That's what he said. That was his first sentence. And I said, well, we are following the signal, but, we're trying to check it out, and I'll know more in 3 hours. Can you wait 3 hours? He says, I'll call you back in 3 hours. And in 3 hours, we had tracked it down. It was a European solar research satellite, and the telemetry, the signals coming back from that satellite with the data that was necessary for that satellite happened to be on the same frequencies we were looking, and it was in the right part of the sky and all that. So there was little doubt that that's what it was.
So you flatly deny that you would have to, if a big thing came in, you'd have to notify the government before whoever from the New York Times.
Yeah, I will flatly deny that. It's true.
Okay.
There's no law that says if SETI finds a signal, the first thing you do is call the White House or call the State Department or anything else. Call the IRS, call whoever you want to call. But no.
I don't know how you can deny this. I saw the movie.
Well, okay, all right, you got me there. But the facts are that this is research. I mean,
I know.
And research is, it's fun to think that there's all this kind of conspiracy, but the facts are it's a very open process.
Well, don't discard conspiracy completely. Massam, is that correct? On Skype?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Get very close to the microphone on your computer, please. You sound like you're hollow.
Of course. I'm very glad listening to your conversation and lecture from Seth Shostak. I'm one of your fans, Seth Shostak, since 2013.
Where are you calling from?
Actually, I'm in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. All right. Do you have a question for Seth?
Actually, I want to just say something. It was in last year, I experienced something very strange. I was listening to Seth Shostak's lectures. I don't remember where was that. Something strange happened. I have the video that was recorded from my office. Actually, it was talking, actually he was talking about lots of things related to astronomy. And then the voice changed to robotic actual voice. And after just very short sentences, it just went like robotic noise. And then something happened very strange was that I think the electromagnetic wave around my office just influenced the electricity and the power that's in my office. That changed the actually light in my office. I wanted to talk to this. Talk about this instead.
All right. Well, Seth is here. I don't know what he's going to make out of that, nor what I make out of it, but we'll find out right now, Seth.
Well, Bassam, I don't know. You said that my voice turned into a robotic voice? Is that what you heard? It suddenly became robotic?
Yeah, I can play it to you. Let me do that.
Well, let's hear a little bit of it.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I can handle it from here. That was a digital recording or a digital playback that obviously began to get in trouble. And it wasn't a robotic voice you heard. You heard digital stuttering is the way to put it. Seth, you want to back that up?
Yeah, no, that's a real effect. I mean, I don't really talk like that. There are people who are, their eyes glaze over like donuts when they listen to me. So maybe they think I have a robotic voice, but it doesn't suddenly do that.
No, I wasn't actually sure. He said an astronomer. I wasn't sure whether it was you or somebody else. The tape was not clear enough, but the digital stuttering was really easy to nail down. So that's what you heard. It was not like something from another planet. I guarantee. Well, almost guarantee anyway. This is Midnight in the Desert.
Her hair is hollow gold. Lips sweet surprise.
Midnight in the Desert, exclusively on the Dark Matter Digital Network with Art Bell. Invite you to call now, 1-952-CALL ART. That's 1-952-225-5278.
Or if you're on Skype and in North America, anywhere, you can call us at MITD 51. That's Midnight in the Desert 51. Don't spell it all out, just the initials, MITD 51. And it's a free call on Skype. All right, back now to Dr. Seth Shostak. He is the senior astronomer and director of the Center for SETI Research, no small matter at all. And we're on this. I've been having a lot of fun with you, but we're very honored to have you here, Seth.
Well, thanks, sir. Thanks. You should mention that that's at the SETI Institute, by the way. They might want to know where the organization is.
Sure. And you're actually located in?
Lovely, glamorous Mountain View, California. It's Silicon Valley.
Not a bad place to be, actually.
Well, Google's, about a mile away from where we are, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to resist making a wise remark and just say, I think it's Dallin. Is that your name?
Yeah.
On Skype? Hi.
Hi.
You're on the air with Seth. Midnight. Go.
I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on the idea of a multiverse and it being fractal, and the idea of a simulation theory existing within a multiverse.
Well, that's a whole bunch of stuff. I can't say much about whether it's fractal or not fractal. The idea of a multiverse, the fact that there may be more than one universe for people who are not into multi-universes, there's something appealing about it in that it kind of provides a natural explanation for why so many things in our universe are kind of niftily set up for life. The value of the gravitational constant, to give a very trivial one. If that were a little bit stronger, then you'd have problems in one direction with planets and life and so on. If the gravitational constant was a lot smaller, then you might not have stars or planets at all, that kind of thing. And if you have a lot of universes, when I say a lot, I don't mean 10 or 100, but if you have, a gazillion, whatever that number is, you have an enormous number of them, then by chance, some of them are going to be just right for life. And those are the ones where we're going to be sitting around asking the question about why is our universe so great? So that's the appeal of the multiverse. It kind of provides a possible explanation for that, but nobody's been able to prove whether they exist or not. I mean, that's something, it's just an idea at this point. What was it? You had another question in there. Can you remind me what the third question was? Because the second one was about fractals, but...
just my thoughts on it are that it could be fractal in nature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's fractal or not. I think, oh, no, I know what you were saying. You were saying the idea that there could be simulations. This is the idea of a guy at Oxford University by the name of Nick Bostrom. He's the one that's made this perhaps best known. The idea that, what we think is reality, our daily lives and so forth, is not real at all. It's just a computer simulation being run in the future by maybe our descendants, right? What's called an ancestor simulation. When computers are very much more powerful, and they seem to be getting more powerful all the time, you can imagine that in 50, 100, 200 years, you might have a computer powerful enough to simulate, a kind of like Sim Earth kind of simulation, but a much, much better one that can simulate everything that you're experiencing, and you're just code running in a computer. It's not real what we're experiencing. It's not really sitting there, in Nevada, and I'm not really sitting here in California. This is all just computer code. And, it's hard to disprove that, but it leads to some, it's a real head-scratching exercise. I don't know what it really says. I asked the guy, Nick Bostrom, once, if this is true, do I have to lead a moral existence? Can I just have fun? If I'm just computer code, what's the harm? And he said I should lead a moral existence.
All right.
At the very least, it's fun to think about.
It is.
It is. All right, thank you, caller. Can I ask a fractal question?
You can, but
all right.
I may give you only a partial answer.
Well, all right, here we go. They're making fractal antennas now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you might not get a really big bump if that thing out at the end of the dish contained some new version of a fractal antenna in what it was sending into you. That's a much higher gain potentially. Is that something being looked into?
Well, we have looked into fractal antennas. In fact, a guy by the name of Nathan Cohen in Massachusetts, I think he started a company to make fractal antennas, so he was certainly into it. And he was also very much into SETI, and he was looking into the application of fractal antennas for SETI. It turns out in a way there's no free lunch. If you really want to be able to pick up very weak signals from the cosmos, you just need a big bucket. And so, you need just a big antenna, and it's hard to get around that. The fractal antenna may help you in some ways, but
high gain, low noise,
Yeah, it might be broadband, that kind of thing. Those are things that you might look at. We're building some new feeds, some new receivers, if you will, that are able to tune the radio dial all the way from 1 gigahertz to 15 gigahertz, thanks to a gentleman down in San Diego who's given the money for that.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
They don't use fractal antennas. It's kind of straightforward antennas, but they have very much better amplifiers.
Okay, so many calls, so little time. Hello there. You're on the air with Seth. There you go. I'm sorry. I didn't have you turned up. Try again. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Indianapolis, and I wanted to ask some kind of challenging questions
Okay.
for Seth.
All right.
I heard him on Larry King 5 years ago make a statement that to me was a bit indicative of his wanting to find out for sure if life was out there, if it wasn't out there.
What do you say?
Well, I can give you the exact quote. I think my screen comes up here, but he said that he wanted to finally find out if Earth was a miracle or if it was actually just an accidental infection of life.
Mm-hmm.
And basically he was saying,
by doing SETI, he would find out if we have an atheistic evolutionary origin, or if God had to be involved for us to be the only ones there.
All right.
Kind of like what Arthur C. Clarke said about how it was terrifying either way.
Caller, listen, we're at a break. I want you to hold on. Don't go anywhere, okay? All right, good. Seth, did you actually use the word infection?
Cosmic infection, I very well could have. I've used that term.
I'm not sure I like being referred to as an infection. All right, hold on. We'll get back to you from the high desert, Great American Southwest. This is Midnight in the Desert. I'm Art Bell. My guest is Seth Shostak.
Midnight Matter can be explored on Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell. If using Skype from your computer, please be sure to use a headset mic and call MITD 51. That's MITD 51.
Really hard to get people to use a headset mic. It really is. But folks, when you do, you sound like you're right in the studio with me. So if at all possible, when using a computer, really do get a headset mic. There's some good ones. You can go out to Walmart or wherever. They've got them all over the place, and boy, do they make a gigantic difference. All right, back now to our guest, Seth Shostak, and our caller, who was talking about a quote that he read from Larry King. Caller?
Yes, this was an exact quote. He said, the big question is the Earth a miracle, or is life just a cosmic infection? I think the latter is probably true, but let's go look and prove it one way or the other. And Art, you kind of pressed him on this earlier, where you wanted to know at what point was he going to give up. And he said, I think he said, even in the year 2050, he still wouldn't give up.
Right.
And he just looked for a different way, but that means he's philosophically bound to the idea that life must be out there, and that isn't a falsifiable question. In science, you're supposed to have falsifiability, and he's never going to falsify his belief. That's my challenge for him. Is there any point where you would answer the question one way or the other, and the other might be, yes, we are alone? It might be terrifying. It's kind of related to his answer about the multiverse, too. Yes, there are a lot of nifty just-so features of our universe, and if you reject the idea of God making it just so, then you pretty much do have to resort to something crazy like a multiverse to explain that, and I appreciate that he said that.
All right.
So anyway, I'm going to challenge him. How do you falsify the idea that we're not alone?
Okay, Seth?
Yeah, well, the caller's right in the sense that this is a little different than, middle school science. There, they teach you have a hypothesis and then you try and falsify it. And he's quite right. You can't falsify the hypothesis that there's somebody out there. There's no way you can prove that they're not out there. Okay, so I agree with that. But keep in mind, this is not that kind of science. This is exploration. This is exploration. And in exploration, you send Captain Cook out there and he sails around the South Pacific for 3 months and he doesn't find anything. That doesn't mean that there aren't any islands out there. He didn't falsify that hypothesis. He just didn't find any. Okay, if you send him out again, maybe he will, maybe he won't. If you send him out enough times, the chances get pretty good that he'll find something. So this is exploration.
Or you'll find nothing and still prove the null hypothesis.
No,
That's the
but
problem.
the null hypothesis,
the absence of evidence proves...
all you can do is prove that it is true. You can't prove that it's not true. And by the way, I would say this. I did say 2050, if we don't pick up a signal with our SETI experiments, I would say, I'd be inclined to think, all right, are we doing the right experiment? But I think long before 2050, we're going to find life in space. And not of the intelligent variety necessarily. It could be that we will find microbes dead or alive on Mars. But there are 6 other places in the solar system besides Mars that we know about already where you could have life. Microbial life, it's true. It's not going to be, something that holds up its side of the conversation. But if you found biology, for example, on one of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn, what would that say? Well, they'd say, well, at least biology is not anything terribly special because, there's several worlds in our own solar system that have it, and there are 1 trillion planets in the galaxy and 100 billion other galaxies, each with 1 trillion planets. So I guess that's what I'm really saying when I say a miracle. When I say a miracle, you shouldn't interpret this as some sort of religious statement. It isn't that. What it is saying, if did we win an incredibly, a lottery ticket out of 10,000 billion lottery tickets, we got the winner? Or are there a lot of winners out there? That's really the question.
But your statement was you want to prove it one way or the other. And wouldn't you agree that when Frank Drake first turned on his radio telescope or whatever he used, he expected probably within a week to hear half a dozen different ET signals. And it's been
I've never heard him say that.
Well, no, but I'd say if it was as pervasive out there as what was once thought, first of all, it's been proved that there is not a single ET civilization who wants to broadcast itself to the galaxy and has the capability to do it. Wouldn't you agree to that?
No, absolutely not.
No, not proven. Not proven. Now you're on the wrong side of it, caller. Not proven, Seth.
Yeah, no. The fact that you haven't found a signal doesn't prove that they're not doing that. It means you haven't found a signal.
Right.
Maybe you've been listening to the wrong part of the radio dial. Maybe you don't have enough sensitivity. Maybe you've been pointing the antennas in the wrong direction. That's just to name 3 things you could be doing wrong, and there are many more. So the fact that you haven't found them yet, I wouldn't lose hope. If this is something you hope for, I wouldn't give up just because you've looked at one. This is what it comes down to. You've looked at 1 acre of Africa and decided, well, no megafauna in Africa because he didn't see any elephants in that 1 acre.
I had more of a feeling that he was hoping you wouldn't find anything.
Well, I think there's actually a faith-based component to all this.
Yes.
I didn't want to get into an argument about religion because this isn't about religion. When I say a miracle, what I mean is some sort of incredibly improbable event that in 1 trillion planets in our galaxy, this is the only one where anything interesting is happening. That makes us very special. And ever since Copernicus, scientists are always a little bit chary of believing that they're that special because in the past, every time we thought we were special, we were wrong.
Let me modify a statement I've made in the past, and here it is. If E.T. contacted us and then landed, and the ramp came down, and a little guy, and we were in communication with him, and a little guy came down, and somebody, before he got to the bottom of the ramp, said, hey, do you believe in the Bible? And he said, oh, Bible. He'd be so full of lead. Actually, he'd be full of lead either way. But he'd be so full of lead that he'd just roll down the rest of the way of the ramp.
Well, I appreciate your sunny interpretation of what would happen with contact.
I do, and I'm not wrong. Not deep in your heart, I'm right.
No, there's probably a lot of truth in that. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Camp Twala. Is that right?
Yes. Hey, Art.
Yes, Twala. Where are you?
I am in Chicago bearing the noise and having flyover surveillance currently going on.
Don't we all?
Oh, it's kind of crazy. I can email you, so I'll get to that.
Okay.
But for Seth, living next to the airport, there's been a lot of different things flying over the bat. Let me see.
Mostly airplanes, right? 4
or 5 years. Like stuff out of the ordinary that's very quiet. You would say it's probably at about 2,000 to 4,000 feet. And I don't know if Seth is familiar with different types of formations or anything of that sort, because one time I've seen a bundle that was in a trapezoid shape, and what they did was they stayed in a formation very quiet, and once they were probably about 15 miles up out of sight, they all came together, bundled, swirled really fast, and just shot in every direction.
Caller, you're not preaching to the choir here at all, because Seth doesn't believe that they're here. So no matter what you say, it's really not going to matter. He's searching for signals out there and is absolutely convinced they have not yet come here. So,
but I mean, there's so many things that people have seen and so much footage, and I just don't understand why.
I don't either.
You know, just because we haven't heard a signal. I mean, is the government testing something? Maybe, but I really doubt that we're that advanced to make something like that and look like a firework and then just every bit just shoot very nicely into every direction.
All right, thank you very much for the call, but you're not going to get anywhere with Seth on this one. As a matter of fact, let me go to the. I've got this thing called the wormhole. They send me messages during the show. Mart in Bakersfield is obviously a big Seth fan. He says, this Seth is a, quoting here, fast-talking paid propagandist whose mission it is to explain to the world that there is no such things as UFOs or extraplanetary intelligence based upon not hearing them send any electromagnetic RF waves. There you have it, Seth.
Yeah, well, I'll respond very briefly. I'm glad to hear that I'm at least paid to do this. I find that intriguing, at least. A disinformation officer, well, you know, this is what my job description is, but it's an interesting interpretation. You know, I'm not, there are several misstatements in there. To begin with, I'm quite sure there are UFOs. I hear from people every day who've seen something, and those are UFOs. They're unidentified, and, you know, the question is, what are they? And they're not people calling up to tell me about a hoax. They've seen something. The question is what they've seen. But I point out this to Mark, that, you know, everybody has really good cameras now. 30 years ago, you would see something in the sky and you get this kind of blurry photo, and it usually didn't have very much information in it. Today, people have very good cameras with them and on their phones, and video and all that. And the pictures of the UFOs haven't gotten any better as far as I can tell. So I think that says something. But, you know, I'm not saying that there's nothing on planets out there. I think quite the contrary. But unlike the UFO community, the SETI community does not claim that we found them. You heard me say all night, we haven't found them yet. We have not.
Right.
I remain optimistic. We might find them. Maybe we won't. But we don't say that we have. Whereas the UFO community says they do have good evidence. And so that's what it really comes down to. If you have really good evidence, take it to the local science museum, see if they'll put it on display.
Okay. From Trenton, New Jersey, midnight for you. Here is Seth. Hi. Hello?
Hey, Seth. Yes.
Go ahead.
Hey, Seth. I just dedicated a Alienware laptop that I have to Boynik for SETI at home, and I was hoping he can talk a little bit about that and how it works.
You bet. Of course he can. Seth, we haven't talked about SETI at home, and we haven't talked about it in a long, long time. What is SETI at home? How can people help? Is it still a viable thing to be doing?
Well, it is. It's not our project, though. I have to say that. You're talking about Boink. That's the, I guess, the operating system for it, the environment in which it runs. But that's a University of California, Berkeley project. They do SETI as well. In fact, they just got a very large private donation to do more SETI. But that's SETI at Home, I think, has had on the order of 10 million people that have downloaded the SETI at Home screensaver. And it's used to reduce the data that they collect. They use the Arecibo telescope primarily for those data. And, you get tremendous compute power when you have 10 million people running their home computers.
Sure.
So it's a great project. It's a great project. We don't do it. What we do, because we control the telescope, when we find signals, we don't farm out those data to, the public and have them process it, because we want to know right away, should we continue to spend time looking in this direction. So we check it out right away. We have the ability to do that.
Okay. All right. Tiffin, Ohio, you're on with Seth. Hi.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Yes, I got a real quick question for Seth. If he's ever heard of the Black Knight satellite that's supposedly orbiting the Earth, and, has he seen anything or know anything about it? And that's all I have.
No? What do you know about it, caller?
Well, it's just been on different talk shows before. Supposedly it's this ancient satellite, black satellite that's orbiting backwards from all the other ones, from pole to pole. It's supposed to be there. They got pictures of it and stuff. So, I just wonder if Seth knew anything about it.
I don't. I guess I don't have the right clearance to know. No, I don't know anything about it. I'm sorry.
Good answer.
It's hard to launch. By the way, just as a point, launching a satellite that goes, if you will, the wrong direction is a little bit harder than launching one that goes in the right direction.
Well, I think he might have been intimating that it wasn't launched at all, Seth. That it was put into orbit.
That's harder yet.
From elsewhere. Not if you've got the. Gosh, Skype, you're on the air with Seth. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Art. I guess this question is reflecting the mindset of a lot of the callers and your fans. But is there anyone else at SETI that has this sort of mindset that we have? That a lot of callers are calling for?
Yeah, you mean that thinks that there's good evidence for visitation? I mean that kind of.
Yeah, are you dealing with this with coworkers as well?
I doubt it.
No, they certainly get questions about it. I don't think they get as many questions as I do, but I might be wrong. Maybe they're keeping it quiet, but I don't think that they would. I mean, they occasionally ask me, they say, what do you say when somebody calls you up and asks you about Roswell or something like that? But look, I think that the bottom line here is that if people, the scientists I know, who are all very skeptical of that were being visited, if they thought there was good evidence, they'd spend all their time working on it. And they've said that. Yeah. It'd be incredibly important if you could prove that we are being visited. What could be more interesting? But, the evidence is not good enough to convince many scientists, and you certainly don't see it in the science museums and, that kind of thing. So,
what would it take to convince you?
Some good physical evidence. Witness testimony is absolutely worthless in science, so that isn't good enough. Photos, if they're unambiguous, if they're really good photos, that might be convincing.
You can't depend on photos anymore, not with Photoshop.
It's hard. I agree with you, but that's a difficulty. So, we have physical evidence. You just pick something up that you can cart to a local lab.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the call, and I want to give you a moment. We're coming to the end of the show already so quickly, but I want you to talk to people and tell them how they can contact you, how they can help, what they can do. People are interested, Seth, in SETI. They really are. So what do you say to them here at the end of the program?
Well, listen, I welcome their interest. I really do. I think it's important that people be interested in this. We're an open research organization. Our observatory is open to visitors, all that. I mean, there's no secrecy here. And if they want to get in touch, the first thing they should do is just go to the SETI Institute website. It's just SETI.org. It's a nonprofit, SETI.org. And, of course, you can find my email address, but I'll give it out on the air. Art warned me not to do this years ago, and I got, hundreds of emails. But
Include your cell number.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to have to drop my cell off at a 6th floor, whatever. The email address is simple. It's Seth@SETI.org. That's it. That's all there is to it. And I'll try and answer as many as I can. But, hey, look, we're interested in science. We're interested in hearing from you. And,
Well, my friend, as always, having you on the air is just such a pleasure. I really enjoy it. I know I have a lot of fun with you, and you're welcome to have fun back. And we'll have you back again if you're willing.
Absolutely, Art.
Seth, take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Good night. From the high desert, great American Southwest, good night all over the world. All the world's time zones. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.
The sun shine on you. Midnight in the desert. And we're listening.
And with that is the end of the SETI conversation. So that is where... Shush. That is where we will leave it for tonight. Of course, that means tomorrow night a brand new topic for Art Bell and guest. So make sure you do feel free to come on back for that tomorrow night. Now, this is a little early, but content's over. So we really don't have much left to do here in Dominion either. So it leads us to basically say, make sure you help us get to the goal of 50,000 views, 1,000 subscribers, so Boxy sends those nice red packages over to us and Google puts us on the algorithms. Coinbase, Ibotta, Gain.gg. Get your $10 free from the first two, your 100 credits free from the third. Help yourself out while helping the show out at the same time. And until next time, like, share, and subscribe. Be kind to one another, and always release the Krakens as we march along this overnight and every overnight here from day one. Have a great overnight. Enjoy your night's sleep. We'll see you.